All right, so I got a question again from one of our parents, and it's about building up. Her son is a baseball player, pretty young, 7th, 8th grade, and his coach wants him to build up his forearm muscles. Okay, so she wants to know how to build up forearm muscles. So I'm going to answer this question, and this actually pertains to most athletes, most sports. Obviously, not as big a deal in soccer. Even basketball, the forearm is going to be really important for palming the ball, gripping the ball. So if you're trying to dunk and you can't palm the ball, it's going to be very difficult. So stronger grip, stronger fingers, grip. When we talk about grip and forearm, you're usually talking about forearms. Okay, so you have your wrist flexors. You're going to have the flexors of your wrist, the extensors of your wrist, and then when you really get into it with more advanced athletes, you're talking about being able to move the wrist like this direction and this direction as well. So not just flexing it and extending it. So, but you're talking a lot about forearms, and you're talking a lot about finger strength as well. And they're all kind of connected, right? So when you move your fingers, you feel your forearms are working. So the way we train it for young athletes like this is, and the other sports that, if your kid plays football, if he's a wrestler, grip training forms is going to be super important. Baseball, basketball, lacrosse, because you're using that stick a lot. Anything where you're holding something or grabbing people, having to hold on to people, holding on to a ball, all that type of stuff, that's going to be grip training, and forms are going to be important. Now, for young athletes, we don't typically do any direct form programming for them, but because usually they're untrained, so this kid's on his second month of training, so he doesn't have a lot of formal training underneath of him. So just doing basic or general physical preparedness training or a GPP style training, you're going to get, we do a lot of carrying and a lot of different pull-up variations and rowing variations and things where you're holding the weights in your hands for extended periods of time. It's going to tax their forearms and their grip good enough to get adaptation for a young athlete. Okay, so once they transition out of that and they're getting into more, they're becoming more advanced with their training, and we become developing more specific movements and to their sports, and getting more specific with that type of thing, and developing more specific types of strength. Then we could start adding different variations of grip training in, depending on the sports that they play and what you're trying to actually develop. But for our young athletes, a lot of carries. So we do a lot of farmer's carries. That's essentially what a farmer's carry is: just one weight in each hand, or a weight in one hand, and carrying it. So we pick up the kettlebells. If a 7th, 8th grade kid is carrying 50, 60, 70-pound kettlebells, that's going to tax his grip a lot. So if you notice, you really have to use, the kettlebells have a bigger handle than a dumbbell has. Dumbbell's a little bit thinner. Kettlebell's a little fatter, so you're going to get the forearms a little bit more with the kettlebell. When you're doing carries, you're also using your legs, you're using your upper back, your core, your shoulders to stay upright and work your posture as well. So for baseball players, this is awesome. Just doing pull-ups and holding themselves on the bar and being able to pull themselves up is going to really work their grip and their forearms at that level in their development. Okay. Now, for a experienced athlete, a kid that's been training all the time, who's super strong, talking about more advanced high school athletes, college athletes, just doing pull-ups isn't going to give them the forearm and the grip development that they need to excel in their sport. But for a young athlete, things like pull-ups, inverted rows, doing rows with dumbbells, doing rows on the T-bar, and holding that weight in their hands when you're doing farmer's carries is going to be plenty of grip training to develop their grips and their forearms. Now, at home, on their own, when they're not in the gym, just holding heavy things, like I said. One of my favorites, let me get a dumbbell out here. One of my favorites is taking just a square head dumbbell, if you have square head dumbbells. We do these with our young athletes too. So one of the things we do, because this gets the fingers a little bit more and the forearms so at the same time. So we take the dumbbell and we use the square-headed dumbbells. This is called a hex dumbbell. And instead of hooking underneath of it and carrying it, we actually pinch the heads of it. We put one finger on each little square part, and you can't, the rule is you can't hold numbers, you just have to pinch the top. So you're pinching it, and now you could do this for holds. I could just stand here and hold it like this for as long as I can, watch the clock. I could walk with them and do like a carry with them. I could also do almost like a curl with them, okay? But that's one of my favorites as well. Also, if you're a young athlete and you want to really work your fingers, we use the rice buckets, and this is something that you could easily set up at your house. You just get a 5-gallon bucket and you fill it with some rice. Here we have a big cooler basically that we got, and we basically just stick our hands in. This is all rice, so if you could see, it's just all rice in there. Okay. So we just stick our hands in here, and you basically open and close your hands as fast as you can. But we got to make sure that your wrist is submerged underneath the rice, basically. So you can open and close your hands as fast as you can. You could add a twisting component to it as you do it. Twist, twist, twist. We can do we could hide something in there and have to dig around as much as we can to find it. That gets to really get to their fingers going, because that takes a long time. And then one of the other things that we do a lot with our young athletes is the wheelbarrow. So this wheelbarrow right here has fat grips on it, and we'll wheel this thing. You know, we could put a lot of weight on it and go shorter distances, or we could put light weight on it and go further distances. And I'm talking, you know, we can go a half mile with this thing or more. So we could put as many 45s as we need onto here, and we just roll that around. And that's going to get there. Again, it's kind of like a farmer's carry. Similar concept as the farmer's carry. And that's another thing that we'll do with our young athletes. And then the other thing would be a roll-up. So I don't actually have them here right now, but what we do is we could actually set up a band with the weight around the bar, and we basically roll the band up with the weight attached to it. So that would be another easy way to train the grip. And then I'll actually set it up here in a second. And then the last one would be curls. So basically curls, you're flexing your wrist and your elbow, you're working your biceps, but you're also going to be getting a lot of this in there too. You could do a curl this way, a curl this way, a curl this way, or you can combine them and curl up like that, flip them, and get the extensors coming down. Okay, so this way to this way would be what we call a Ottman curl. So it would look like this. Flip, down. And that, obviously, for a young kid, that would be lightweight. But, like I said, for the young kids, sticking to the basic GPP stuff, like our basic programming is meant to bring up their grip strength and their forearm strength to the level that we need them to be able to move into more advanced training using barbells and stuff like that. So let me set up, actually we'll set up one. Let me set up the wrist roll that I like. So I need a kettlebell. One second. So we tie this to the kettlebell first. So we basically wrap the band, we tie the kettlebell to the band, and then we go around the barbell. And this is basically a wrist roller. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen like a wrist roller before. We roll it up. You just want to go both directions with that. But now I have on the barbell. So this, we could do a bunch of kids at once when we do it like this. But for, you can always make your own wrist roller. And we'll just take this and you would roll it. One way going up, and then we want to come down slow with this. We don't want to let it fall. and then the other way going like that, and then down. Okay. Now there's a lot of like hand gripping devices. You could always buy those. Those things are pretty cool. You can have at home. They're easy to just grip. But you know, that's some ideas to get you started for a young baseball player in training forearm and grip.